Brilliant. Okay.
You could move us on to the quick overview of prospect change. That's perfect. And feel free just to bob all the information up there and I'll just fly through it. I think many of you on this call actually know about prospect change, so I'll just go through this quite quickly. So we are a startup. We are a consultancy that was founded in 2022 by myself and the lovely Jen. And we've had Asher and Dev join us since then off the back of our academy, our Prospect Change Academy that we run in collaboration with Bradford College. We're a Bradford-based business, but we've had the opportunity to work all across the UK and even beyond. So we've been able to work in Saudi and Dubai, as well as extended teams in Poland and Romania. So we've had some fantastic opportunities over the last few years. We are a consultancy that specialises in PMO, but PMO in the strategic perspective. So how do we connect PMO to genuine change? And how does that PMO, that portfolio management office, manage projects as a portfolio of change and connect that portfolio to organisational strategy and vision? So it's not a tactical, we don't focus on tactical PMOs. That if we've got any project managers in the room, if you've experienced a tactical PMO, you've probably experienced some level of frustration because there's no connection to a wider vision and strategy and a purpose for the function beyond templates and processes. So we are twofold. Our mission is twofold. We have the consultancy side, which is pretty much does what it says on the tin. So we support organisations in the successful delivery of projects and programmes, ultimately saving time and money, because if you set that project and programme up right, it delivers much more successfully and you avoid extended timelines, which cost a huge amount of money. And we're really passionate about putting PMO on the educational map and creating a route from education into employment within PMO that doesn't currently exist. So we've made a lot of headway in that space already and very passionate about that. And Asher and Dev were the first to join our academy where we introduced PMO to Bradford College students, and now they're living and breathing PMO here at Prospect Change. Now I'd say without further ado, I think we crack on with today's subject of setting projects up for success and keeping them on track. Jen, I'm going to hand over to yourself.
Yep. Thank you, Ruth.
Very much.
Hi everyone, just a really quick introduction. I'm Jen, co-founder of Prospect Change alongside Ruth. Really great to have you here this morning. Thank you for taking time out. I hope you've got a coffee ready and we'll make a start. So this morning we're here to talk about setting up projects for success and keeping them on track. So what we want to talk to you about today is project foundations, enablers for success. So we'll come to that shortly. Then we're going to just tell you a little bit about how Prospect Change can typically help an organisation. Obviously, we've got the Q&A as well, and we always have freebies at the end of our webinars. We love to give stuff away and see what you think of them and get your feedback, and we do hope that they're helpful. And of course, we are running webinars throughout 2025 on various subjects, so we'll just give you a little bit of information about that before we close and send you on your way. Okay, so let's make a start. Let's talk about project foundations. So Ruth and I, for the last, oh gosh, dare I say it? I don't know, 18 years in our careers, Ruth. We have been on the receiving end of change, and we have been on the side that's implementing the change delivery side. I spent a lot of time in operations, managing teams, a lot of the time in financial services, and often had the projects imposing change on my teams and having to communicate that. Sometimes it went really, really well. Other times it was just extremely frustrating. And I always wondered, where do these things come from? Where do these instructions come from above? And eventually I found myself in that very place, working in PMO, coordinating projects and understanding how they link in with operations and consider the change, the people living the change. And so what we've done is we've kind of brought together our experience, and over the years, it's like what we find are the foundations that you need in place to set up your project or programs, of course, for success. And these are our foundations. I'm going to talk to you a bit about pausing, slowing down to speed up. I think a lot of you will relate to this when we talk about that. Business cases, that critical document in a project that really does need some time and focus on to make sure that your project is set up well. Of course, people goes without saying. We've talked just recently talked about that. Being on the receiving end of change. Those people live in the change, those people deliver in the change, and everyone else that's involved in that change. So it, kind of encompasses everybody involved in that. Governance, one of our favourite topics in PMO. The home of governance is, of course, PMO. And so we've done a lot of work with this to understand what good looks like, and we'd like to share that with you today. And of course, plan. A plan for your project. A good plan means success. And these are what we are calling our success enablers, the foundations. You get these right, you're going to have a good project. You're going to have a successful project that you can build on. So let's just dive into these a little bit more. Slowing down to speed up. Often projects kick off with a pressure to get moving. Now, if we've got any program managers, project managers, or other people that have worked in change on the webinar today, you may relate to a lot of these things that you might hear. We've already spent the money, we just need to get on with it. The deadline's already set, before we've even looked at a plan, but there's a deadline. And often that, it's fair, it's a fair thing to say sometimes, that because it could be regulatory, and regulatory change often have deadlines to meet, which is fine, but we see it in other projects as well. Senior leaders are keen to see those quick wins sometimes and want visible momentum. So we want to just get on with it, get on delivering, create those quick wins. Sometimes there is a perceived simplicity with projects as well. A lot of the time, it can be senior leaders, executives that have not necessarily been part of change in the past. They've come in through a different route, and often maybe don't see what is involved in projects of big scales, IT transformation projects, for example. And of course, a lot of the forework has already been done, and then all of a sudden you're a stakeholder in a meeting of a project. Decisions have been made, and you're like, oh, hang on a minute, we need to stop and think about this. The result of all these is that people are not engaged properly. There's a lot of frustration. We haven't really defined the problem. We've certainly not defined the scope, or what success looks like. Assumptions that we have made go unchallenged, and often risks and hidden complexities are not considered as well. And so the reason why we say we need to pause is that we need to allow for a little bit of patience at the start of a project to kind of slow everybody down and make sure that we do that exploration, that discovery part of the project to make sure that we're setting off on the right foot. These discussions are difficult to have if you're a project manager or a program manager, and you've been given that instruction. But having had the conversations around slowing down, it'll be absolutely worth your while if you can kind of bring people on board and influence, and make people see why there is a reason to slow down. Now, we're not talking slowing down for a long, long time. We can, as a team, if everybody's available, we can absolutely, pull a business case together and understand what needs to be done within the space of a few weeks. And so if that's doable, then, you should really chase that time. So those are kind of the red flags. There'll be others you might have seen. Feel free to share any experience that you've had when projects are kind of, there's a lot of pressure to get moving. When you do pause, you just need to remember the who, what, where, when, how, and why. Who do we need to engage? Have we engaged the right people? Do we know what it is that we want to deliver and the outcomes we want to achieve? And actually, where do we want to be? Is what we are doing, we're wanting to do, is it aligned to the vision of the organisation? So is it linked to the strategic objectives? What is the purpose for the project that we're doing? When can we realistically deliver this? So looking at, looking at the what's needed, the timeframes that's already been stipulated, what's realistic? How will we oversee this project? So it's progress. You've got your what, you understand what you need to achieve. But then there's the how. How will you go about delivering that project as a project team? Let's just stop and think about that. What does a project team look like? What does the structure look like? How will we govern this project? What strategies will we use? And what do we have in place to make sure that that we are managing this in an efficient and effective way? And are we clear on the why we need to make this change? And the things that can help you practically with this are these documents that we've included on the page. They'll be familiar to yourselves. Business case, risk management strategy, an agreed plan, stakeholder register. There's more. There's a lot of templates out there, and you don't have to use all of these. The business case is probably the most important document here, but these are typical documentation that you would see and that you would have in an organisation. If you have a PMO, go to your PMO. They'll have these templates that will help you really get to the bottom of your project and spend that time doing that. So that's pausing. So if you are starting a project and it feels really rushed right now, and there's the feeling of lack of control, then just think, do I need to pause right now? Okay. That's the first one. And just a final message there, just slowing down early gives you clarity, alignment, and a fighting chance at delivering time and budget. Whereas rushing leads to confusion, rework, and scope creep, and a lot of other things, of course. Just moving on, segueing into business case now. So business case that tells a story. Over the time that Ruth and I have worked in PMO, we've seen a lot of business case documents for many different projects. It's been part of our role as PMO managers, leads, and even PMO analysts to review business case documentation. So we've seen a lot. We know what really good looks like, and we know what the not so good looks like. The not so good is often things, red flags that come up here that we've written on here. So they're written just to unlock funding. There's an eagerness to get the funding for the project without kind of considering a lot of the context around the project and other things that absolutely need to be considered. A business case that's vague or too technical or filled with jargon does not help. So we need to make sure, and we'll come on to this shortly, that the language that we use in business cases can be essentially read by anybody in and understood. Often the benefits are vague. So we might talk about financial benefits and non-financial benefits. But we really do need to make sure that the benefits are linked to the outcomes that we want to achieve. And benefits should always be measurable. There's a lot of work that goes into benefits at the front, but it absolutely will be worth your while further down the line, because all you need to do then is monitor the benefits. It lacks a clear, compelling narrative. So, it's selling the why. It's bringing people around, influencing people. Often they don't have that kind of information. It just kind of scratches the surface, and doesn't kind of go into the detail that it needs to. And it doesn't evolve the project. Quite often we see business cases written, approved, and then put in a drawer, put in a file, and they gather dust. The business case is your living document. It should be under your arm as a project manager all the way through the project. It needs to be, you need to constantly get it out and check that you're still doing what you said you would do. And as we mentioned there, the business case is abandoned, it becomes outdated, the project drifts without a clear anchor. People don't connect with it. It doesn't inspire people. It doesn't get them excited about the change or clarify what matters most. Success becomes hard to measure or prove. That's just linking back to the benefits. Like, why are we doing this, and how are we measuring this? How are we making sure that this is worth our while, and that the organisation is getting the value back for the money that they're spending on this? So what you can do is write a compelling business case. Okay. Tell a clear story. Tell a clear human story. So like we said, anybody in the organisation should be able to pick up your business case and get it. Jargon, project speak, try and limit that as much as you possibly can, and just write in straightforward words. Accessible language. Treat the business case as a living document. Review it all the time throughout. This is your North Star, like we said here. It's a compass that keeps everybody aligned. Capture the value proposition and the constraints. So we know that we've seen this project triangle, the iron triangle: time, cost, and scope. So those are the constraints that we need to understand, because they will always exist in a project or program. So, when do you need to have this done by realistically? How much will it cost, and what is in scope of this? What will it cover? And then what do the benefits and what's quality look like? So, too many times we've seen a project manager and a program manager to go away, get their head down and write a business case and then hand it into PMO. And it's not created with anybody else. It's not created with other stakeholders. They don't have their input. So it's really important that if you've got other key domains in your organisation, whether that's IT, finance, HR, you should always have a representative that will have a glance over the business case and get it, because then there'll be no surprises down the line. You're engaging your peers and other areas of the business, and everybody will feel involved. So make sure that yes, of course, draft the business case, but send it out to people, get people's inputs, and then bring it all back together again. It means you're sending a really good quality business case up to the exec team or whoever is going to be approving it. And it'll be more compelling because you've included everybody else. And always acknowledge your assumptions and your risks. Take time to consider what your risks look like for your project. Even if they're just thoughts right now, it's really important to document your concerns, your risks, your worries, anything like that can be explored further once the business case has been approved. So tell a story. From start to beginning, it should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Quite often the exec summary is really key in the business case. And a business case doesn't have to be a complex template. If you want to write a business case that is a blank Word document, then you can do that. It doesn't have to be a template. Templates really do help because they make sure that you're covering all areas, and you're capturing everything that you need to. But if you nudge, for example, I know you were talking about what you were planning on doing, and it's important for you to write down your business case and why you're doing this. I would recommend that you take the time out to do that. And of course, we're on hand if you want any help and support with that. So, practical ways the business case can help keep a project on track. So we've got the business case. How does it help to keep things on track, and what can we do? We can review it regularly, treat it as a living document, review it regularly to ensure that the project stays aligned with changing circumstances, because your project will change, things around you will change. We've all seen that from COVID. A lot of you will have been mid-flight projects. COVID comes along and puts a spanner in the works, and we have to pivot, we have to change. So it's important to stop and revisit that business case. What does this mean now for us? And it ensures that progress is continuously measured. Track against your objectives. So what did you put in there at the beginning around alignment to objectives, the goals that you set out in that business case? Are you kind of following them still? Are you still on track? And use it as a communication tool. Don't keep it in a drawer. Don't, always have it out. Make sure that people have access to it. They know exactly where it is. Always encourage people to revisit it, share it if you update it. So have it out. There's other practical ways, but these are kind of just key ones. So this list, when we talk about practical ways to keep projects on track, these are not exhaustive. So please, if you've got any thoughts yourself, that you've, in your experience that you find really works well, do share them here. Drop it in the chat and we can just pick that up. So that's the business case. People at the heart of change. So when we talk about people here in this part, this is to do with people living the change, on the receiving end of change. This is your stakeholders, your project team. It's making sure that you've got everybody in place and that you have really considered the people in the organisation that are going to be living this. Really, really important. Some red flags that we see is that those impacted by change are not engaged before decisions are made. So they're informed, over-involved. You may have been, that may resonate with some people on the webinar today. It's something that we see quite a lot from those living the change. So they're informed and not involved, but also those that are expected to be part of the change delivery team. Again, informed, not involved right from the start. Team members, sponsors, and stakeholders that aren't clear on who's doing what or why they're involved at all. We know there's a project going on in the background or a program of work going on, but we don't know what our role is in it. I think I mentioned at the top. Well, I mentioned at the top of the call that I was on the receiving end of change as an operations manager, and just quite often I didn't know this change was coming. I didn't know why. I was just kind of instructed to change my processes and retrain my team members, and that wasn't ideal, because we were like, why are we doing this? And it was all last minute, and so it's really important that we really consider everybody involved. when communication is top down and feels one way as well, it feels like a lot to people. It's a tell culture and not kind of a more engaging ask culture, and so that results in loss of trust and leadership, frustration because there's unclear accountability, misunderstanding, misalignment, of course, resistance, and we all hear the term change fatigue as well. So keeping people at the heart of change, engage early and often, right from the start. Be really thinking about who you need to engage in your project, in the delivery team, your stakeholders. Is there anybody who you're dependent on that you need to keep in constant engagement with? But most important, of course, engage the people who are impacted by the change early and often, right from the start. And we'll come on to how you can do that shortly. Clarify roles and responsibilities in the project team. That's really, really important. We recommend having a roles and responsibilities document or a RACI or both if you want that. But giving people clarification on what their role and responsibility is in the project, because it might be different to what they do, day to day, is really important. Make communication a two-way street. And there's various ways you can do that. Again, we'll come on to that shortly. Show active, visible sponsorship. This is really important, isn't it? Those who have been in projects and programs, and there's always been a sponsor of the project. The person who is often sits at executive level, who is backing this project, that's a sponsor, a project sponsor, and they need to show that they're visible throughout their project, because they are flying the flag for the project. Spot and support the emotional side of change. So this is not just about having town hall sessions or having just one-off meetings and then feeling like you've communicated what's going to happen. This is about regular interaction with those to gauge what's happening on the floor with people, and how they're feeling about it, gathering the feedback and reacting to it. And I'm sure that there are change managers on this webinar that could talk a lot more about this section. My expertise is PMO, not change management, but we absolutely know the importance and acknowledge the importance. I think with yourself, Ruth, wasn't it, that the PMO is just as much about people as it is about projects, programs, and portfolios. Change succeeds when people are heard, when they're involved, and when they are supported. So practical ways to keep people-focused actions to keep the project on track. So map who's affected, understand exactly who is involved, which parts of the business, which teams, which individuals are involved. Create and maintain a simple stakeholder matrix. Doesn't have to be a complex document, but make sure that you know who is part of this journey with you. And you make sure that you prioritize attention and where the impact and influence are the highest. Communicate with and not to. So replace broadcast emails with regular two-way forums, feed answers and decisions back fast. Keep an ear to the ground, use different ways of understanding how people are feeling, whether that's via pulse surveys, open door sessions, just general interaction with people, just to get a feel for what's going on there. Prepare and support, provide timely training, coaching and along with tools and equipment before go live. Can't stress this enough. Again, I've been on the receiving end of this, and it almost comes at the last hour, doesn't it? Training, coaching. Quite often people don't have the tools that they need or equipment, and that could be simple documentation that shows processes or scripts or just anything that will help them. But really, really important. One just kind of going off tangent here, it reminded me this about the Titanic. So one of the root cause reasons why the Titanic possibly failed and sank was because they had introduced a new radio system on board the Titanic, but they hadn't shown anybody on board how to use that equipment, and so they were unable to communicate about the iceberg to other members of staff. And that was one of the reasons. I always think about this when I see tools and equipment before go live. It's an interesting story. So I always think about that. So we don't want to think, do we? Okay. Governance. Right-sized and not red tape. One size does not fit all. So we all know that governance can get a bad reputation, and some of the reasons why are here. Governance is seen as overly bureaucratic, a tick box exercise, if you will, and more about paperwork than enabling progress. It's often designed at the wrong scale, a one-size-fits-all approach that doesn't flex or to project size or complexity. So it's just kind of, this is the off-the-shelf governance that you must follow. And it doesn't matter if your project is 4 months or 3 years, then you need to have this governance approach, and you need to complete all these documentation. It's just not needed, is it? It's seen as policing rather than partnering. So, a lot of the time, we've come across PMOs and PMO professionals who have been referred to as PMO police. And that absolutely isn't the case. There's something wrong if people have that perception. There's something underlying that's wrong. Rather than partnering, need to be enabling, doesn't it? So governance should enable change. It shouldn't restrict it. We often use the term guardrails at Prospect Change, and that's what we like to do. Like to refer to governance as guardrails of change. Some people think it adds time, but not value, because we are asking people to complete their business case. I'm like, oh, it takes too long to do that. No, there's a reason why you need to do this. And as a result, governance is treated as admin rather than guidance. Small initiatives just become overwhelmed. Sometimes just simple regulatory change doesn't need a lot of control. It needs to be done quickly, and we need to make sure that we enable that. Teams can feel smothered with too much. Project managers and program managers have a really big job to do. So it's really important that whoever is looking after the governance is supporting the project managers, program managers, and helping them get their governance right, and helping them deliver it. People question its purpose when they don't see the value, and I think a lot of you on the call will probably relate to that as well. It's like, I don't know why we have to do this. So, it's good to question why. Always make sure that you understand why you're having to fill in a template. I would absolutely, challenge your PMO on that. They should know the purpose of each particular template and why it adds value. So what does great governance even look and feel like? Great governance is right-sized to the project is not over-engineered or one size to fits all. I was a PMO lead for an organisation that reduced significantly in size, kind of winding down, and there's a real need to right-size the governance from, a 3,000 strong head count to they were just reducing to 200 or 300 people, and so the governance needed to reflect that. So there was an opportunity and a need to review the governance and templates that we had in the organisation to manage change, and so we reviewed that and made it a lot simpler and fit for purpose for an organisation of that size. Often it's the other way around. We have small organisations that are growing rapidly with a lot of change, and therefore we need to review the governance and see if we need to add anything else, any other processes to help the organisation deliver their change. Governance helps teams make good decisions, solve problems early, and stay focused on outcomes. It feels like a guardrail and not a roadblock. It's focused on value and risk, and not just process. So that's all about, we talk about strategic level. PMOs, for example, they help understand the organisation's vision and objectives, and therefore make sure that the change that is happening, the change that will help deliver those objectives, is right and can be prioritised. And that's how PMOs can help with great governance as well. And it creates visibility across stakeholders and builds trust. We find ways to make sure stakeholders are receiving one version of the truth rather than loads of different pieces of information flying around. What does it feel like? It feels lightweight, but it feels strong. It supports, but without suffocating people. It feels like a guardrail, somebody you can lean on, or something that you can lean on, and not a roadblock. It's purposeful and value-driven, and it feels open and collaborative. And from a PMO perspective, because governance is the heart of a lot of what we do, I always think that you've got your governance right when you've got project managers and program managers coming to you for help, asking for your assistance, not wanting you to leave the organisation because you've made a real impact in helping them deliver their change. So that, again, that's what good feels like. So that's governance. At its best, governance is the project's invisible handrail, steady, unobtrusive, always there to guide progress safely without slowing the climb. Some practical tips here. Again, this is not exhaustive. Do share if you work in PMO and you've found something that works. Ensure visible sponsorship. Sponsors, so those people who are backing and flying the flag for the project or programme, should be visible. They should be attending any major reviews. They should always be in the steering group of the project if that's something that's been set up. They should be ready to back decisions, and of course they can accelerate approvals because they have that influence and power. Define decision rights up front. Define and agree the escalation route. So if something needs immediate attention in a project, then let's define where that issue will go to. And we call that an escalation route or an escalation process. That's really important because it means that issues are dealt with quick and fast, and can be resolved. Defining decision rights also can refer to the way that you'll make decisions along through the project. So steering groups, for example, that's often the place where a lot of decisions are made. But it's also really important to make sure that We find ways to empower teams to make decisions on a daily basis as well, and kind of what rights will they have day to day to make decisions without having to escalate as well. That's really important. So it doesn't hinder progress. Keep dashboards simple. We all know the traffic light system, don't we? Red, amber, green. It's really helpful. A stakeholder sees a red, they home in on that red, and they look at the reason why. They don't need to worry about the greens. That gives them comfort. Their eyes will automatically go to red. So make sure that you're using color coding in your dashboards. So it allows them to spot, understand, and unblock issues quickly. Don't write a load of detail in your dashboards. Make sure that you've got just simple one-liners to explain things as well. Again, a lot of the time, executives don't have a lot of time to stop and think, especially in an organisation where there's a lot of projects underway. Regularly review and monitor risks and issues. Quite often we create a risk log, and again, it gets filed away and gets put away, and it's pulled out now and again. But if you can get into a heartbeat of review for risks and issues, it's really, really helpful. It helps you keep on top of things, it helps you create action plans, and you don't miss anything. There's no surprises. And finally, planning. We all know that a plan is critical to a project delivery. But some common red flags, as we've written on here, the plan is approved but then isn't reviewed. So we've been there, we've done all that hard work to get that plan listed and written and in place, but then we don't review it, we don't continue to review it, and we don't kind of link it to the business case and make sure that it's still going to deliver what needs to be. Tasks are listed, but owners aren't. Seen that so many times on project plans where we've listed all the activity that needs to be done, but we don't know who's doing it. And so they just kind of sit there. Missing stakeholder tasks. So what we mean by this is those sign-off tasks. So quite often it's really easy to say to miss tasks such as signing off of plans, signing off of documentations. And those are the things that can sit with a stakeholder for some time. And of course, that holds the project up. So make sure that you put those in your plan. Make sure you know your dependencies. Make sure they're not ignored or unknown. It's really good to have a dependency workshop when you're looking at your plan so that you can identify what you are relying on from internal and external teams or people. And we've often heard as well, we'll work out the details as we go. How can we know what that looks like? It's really important to sit down and work out what things might look like, consider risks, any dependencies, and any decisions that need to be made along the way. So these red flags can mean that the plan becomes outdated, accountability is unclear, the project stalls waiting for sign-offs and inputs, hidden dependencies emerge, impacting schedules and budgets, and priorities keep shifting, meaning delivery drifts, of course. To create a plan for success, though, we need to make sure that we are communicating the plan clearly to everybody. We're clear on ownership of all activity that's in the plan. We're involving the right people early, so going back to people again, making sure that those people are always involved from the start. Make sure that you're building flexibility into the plan. Don't make it rigid and tight on timescales. Make sure that you're allowing some tolerance in terms of time on your activities where you need it. because you'll thank yourself later on if that comes up. Monitor and track progress regularly. Make sure that you are reviewing your plan all the time. Great project planning lays a foundation for success, turning ideas into achievable goals. Just a little bit of practical advice. Baseline the plan with formal approval. So much we've seen is where we have plans in place, but they don't have approval from key stakeholders, and so the kind of it's not been acknowledged. And we've noted there, this is a plan we're accountable to. It's really important to make sure that all your stakeholders and sponsors are happy with the plan. And again, having that approval is means that you as a project manager or program manager have the confidence to move forward with that plan. Include dependencies in the plan as planned items. So once you are aware that you are relying on another team or individual for delivery of a piece of work, make sure that that is in your plan and they have agreed to that and the timescale associated with it. Regularly review your plan. So make sure that you schedule regular sessions. We advise that you align the reviewing of your plan to any status reporting cycle that you might have as well, so everything is fresh and up to date and timely. Most importantly, keep the plan accessible to your stakeholders. Store it in a shared version-controlled workspace. Ensure the plan can be easily accessed and viewed. Now, I know this can be a little bit difficult if you've got Microsoft Project, for example, and you've got licenses. But if you can, make sure that people know how to navigate the basics of your plan. Maybe run some sessions in Microsoft Project, or whichever tool you're using, so that people can go into that and have a look at it. Alternatively, you can, export to Excel and make sure that that's available to people. Or for those people who like visuals, plan on a pages are also really great, so that people can see the key detail, the high level detail of the plan. We're fans of plans on a page at Prospect Change. We think that they keep change simple. Okay. Those are the foundations. I hope that's been useful. Just a final note, solid foundations turn project chaos into confidence. When you start with a compelling purpose for your business case, you engage your people who will drive and live the change, establish lean but decisive governance, and craft a living plan for success. You replace guesswork with clarity and momentum. So those are what we believe are the foundations for project success. We hope that's been really useful to you. I'm going to pass on now to Ruth, who's going to talk about how Prospect Change can help you in your organisation, you personally. If you've got any questions, we're always happy to talk to people. So I'll pass over to Ruth. Thank you, everyone.
Lovely. Thanks. Oh, that was on mute. No, I'm not. Lovely. Thanks so much, Jen. Yeah, I'm just going to fly through this because I'm conscious of time and I'd really like to get to the questions. So in terms of Prospect Change, we are a consultancy and an academy, and we have 4 key areas really that we help organisations. If you could just jump on a slide for me, Jen. So we have PMO as a service, where we focus predominantly on the create, enhance or recover space of projects, programmes and portfolios. So whether it needs a programme that needs recovering because it's gone off track, or it's early days of a project and you just want to be set up for success, or it's a portfolio and you don't have a PMO and you want that creating, or you have one but it's not quite fit for purpose and you'd like it enhancing. We also do PMO Partner, which is a light touch version, and it's best way to describe it would be a retainer service, where we place a highly skilled PMO professional with an organisation for as little as 1 day a month, and they can do all sorts. They can do troubleshooting workshops, they can deliver training, create new templates, dip into our prospect change toolbox for templates and processes, which means you get things a lot quicker. Always the same consultants. That's a very popular service, and it's really budget friendly as well. So you get great value for lower budget. And then we have our training. So this is how do we make you stronger and enable you as an organisation? So we come in and we train people up within project management or PMO. Often that training is very bespoke and fit for purpose for an organisation, because ultimately that's where the most value is, rather than taking a off-the-shelf framework and expecting that to work. And then finally, we do have a collaboration approach with other consultancies. So because we specialise predominantly in PMO, we collaborate with other consultancies who are mainly delivery focused, change management focused, technical focused, in order to bring the guardrails element to clients. So whistle stop tour there, but if you've got any questions, you know where we are. Feel free to reach out to us at any point. I'm going to start working my way through the questions. And again, if you need to jump off at past, feel free to go. We're going to continue talking, continue going, so we can get through all of these questions. And Asha will share with you a copy of the recording. So if you've asked a question and you'd like the answer, it's coming up. And if you need to jump off, just catch up on the answer on the recording. So, Naj, we had a question from yourself, which is a great question around when you're working with technical delivery specialists and you're not technical. So Naj says here that he is developing an AI minimum value product with 2 students and would like some tips on managing a project when the people delivering are technical experts and you are not. And again, anybody that's on the call that has a point, feel free to jump in a moment. But I would say you're in a really good position there, Naj, because if you're not the technical expert, it allows you to translate what the technical experts are doing into terminology that the rest of the organisation will understand. So I would use your position to really represent those that are going to be using this product once it's launched, and also those that will need value from it, because you can ensure that value message translates through to the technical experts. And then when they present something to you and you say, what on earth are you talking about? None of that makes sense. It's all jargon. You can work together to get it into a level of terminology that you understand. And if you're not a technical expert, then hopefully that means the users can understand it as well. So I think you're in a quite a strong position, actually, considering you're not a technical expert. I think you might find that the way that you communicate the project as a result of that will actually be stronger. Naj, does that answer your question? And has anybody else got any other thoughts that they'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I suppose yeah, that does. I think it's just tracking the ongoing progress of the project, because they are essentially just 2 AI MSc students that they could pretty much do what they want and show me something, and I'll be like, that's not like. I think the only thing is that he's engaging someone that just came out of it is what the outcomes that they're doing, are they actually giving me the outcomes that I want, or close to it. I suppose it's expectations. What's come out, what's occurred to me after this is, are the expectations realistic that I've got? Because it's only 3 months, and it's 3 months at 40 hours a week, which is still quite cheap for what I've got for students. But I suppose it's what the expectations are. Yeah.
So I would suggest making sure you set those expectations as clearly as possible, and do that in the form of requirements. So if you can understand, one, why is this needed, and what must it deliver? So we're talking about a minimum value product here. So what must it deliver? Not what could it deliver and what would be a nice to have, but what are the absolute essentials? And make sure those essentials are captured, and you don't go over the top and bring in any of those added extras that would be nice to have. Capture them, but there's something called the Moscow theory or the Moscow model. Have a look at that. It's MOSCOW, and it's must have. Oh, someone might have to help me with this if we've got a BA. Aidan, I might need you on this one. Must have, should have, could have, would have.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Fabulous. Thank you. So if you have a look, if you gather all those requirements, then rate them as that, and you want the must-haves for your product there, and get some testers on board. So anybody that's going to be using this product, engage them early, engage them to understand any requirements. And then as you start to create the product, get them testing it to make sure it works and to iron out any problems and challenges, and also to make sure it is actually fit for purpose as well. And get as many people testing it as possible and go through iterative cycles in order to get it to the point that you're comfortable with it before you launch it. But then when you do launch it, be clear that this is open to feedback. Like, it's a first go, share any thoughts, rather than sort of saying this is the absolute finished product and no changes. So kind of do a bit of a test run, a pilot might be a good way to do it.
That's interesting, because Huddersfield have said they will, in the Health Innovation Partnership, they will test it. So it was about when it was going to be tested. So actually, if I could test it earlier, then it's like in the last month. Well, that might be a quick bit of a quick turnaround to get someone there, but it would be. But the it's just to get it to the point where someone will invest in it. There's enough structure there to show that someone can invest in it. Which is, it doesn't have to be because it's a huge project. It's like a 5-year thing that I've just started, but it's one of those things where I need to get it where someone will put it in front of someone and go, right, I see what you're doing now. I need to put some money behind it.
That's real. So what you're getting is like almost a prototype. So you're almost going to the point of the business case phase, then, aren't you? You're trying to get it to the point of business case.
Yeah.
To be able to say this is worth the investment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The market stuff's there. It's just making it fit. It's just, it doesn't have to be. I've said to them, it doesn't have to be all bells and whistles and finished. It just needs to show one particular part of it, and then the rest can just be built. Like, I just need to get it to the point where someone will chuck some money at it.
Sounds absolutely fascinating. I would just say be very, very clear on what it must have and what it must contain. Capture them in the form of requirement. What does it need to deliver, and why, and what does good look like? How will you evidence that requirement has been delivered? And make sure you've got people testing it, and the communication piece is massive around it. So try and stay away from technical language and talk about the value it will bring and why it will make a difference, rather than what it is. Why is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any?
What will the user experience be, Nad? At the end of it? So we'll, make sure that that's defined. So how will somebody using that app, what will they want to do to get out of it? So the user experience, start there and work backwards, I think is always useful.
Thanks.
Lovely. Anybody else got anything they'd like, any pointers to share with Naj? We'll move on to the next question. This was from John. So John's had to leave. I wasn't sure if this was a question. It felt like an observation. And actually, my thoughts on this was that it's a really strong approach. So it looks like here that John is understanding the need for a piece of change, and is assigning a BA to understand that tech first. So it's a piece of tech that needs to be brought into the organisation, and they don't yet know what that tech needs to look like and what it will be, or who they will use. But they're assigning a business analyst in those early days, which I think is a fantastic approach, because business analysts are absolutely amazing at asking the right questions at the right point and digging deep. So they will keep asking why, what does that, why do you need that? What does that need to look like? How will you apply that? Until they can get to a point where they're very clear on why a piece of change is needed, what it needs to look like, and the value it needs to bring, and not jumping into a solution too early. So understanding the business need, being very clear on that, and being very clear if you're talking data, and if you're talking tech, like what's the data? What data needs to come out of this? What data needs to go into it? What data needs to come out of it? Why is it needed? Who will be utilising it? Who will get the value from it? Then that will start to get you to a position where you can start exploring potential solutions and looking at what's out there on the market and doing some market testing, some learning, some testing, some validate, some assumptions to see if you can validate, etc. So it sounds like a really good approach. But John, if you're listening to this recording and that hasn't answered your question, you know where I am, so just drop me a message and we can catch up and walk through it. And then, Jeremy, you had a few questions here, a really good point here around how do you balance a governance structure so that you don't take away autonomy from the project team. And that is really important, because you don't want the project manager and the project team to feel like every single time they have to make a decision, they need to go up and up and up the chain to make that decision for it to come back down again. One, that slows it down. And two, it just doesn't feel very good if they've not got the autonomy to make decisions. So there will be certain, if you've set out the project at the beginning and you follow a particular framework and a life cycle, key decisions will be made as you move from one phase of a life cycle to another, which allows any outputs from that particular life cycle to be validated. So we've talked about requirements quite a bit, so let's use this as an example. Requirements start to get captured early on within a project. You want to be looking at your high-level requirements, and then you delve a little bit deeper and go into detailed requirements. Now, when you're having those conversations, to derive from those conversations a set of requirements, that gives you, as a project team, a set of expectations to which you're going to deliver the project. And therefore, it grows the autonomy of the project team, because if you can clarify those expectations very early on, everyone is bought into those expectations, i.e. the requirements of what good looks like and what you're delivering. As long as you're making decisions within the remit of what has already been agreed, you don't need to go up the chain for decisions. And therefore, if you're baselining that plan, requirements, costs, benefits, and everything is agreed and baselined relatively early on in the project, you're delivering in line with what has been agreed, and your autonomy is significantly larger. You only need to go outside for decision when it is beyond that. So you are going beyond a set of requirements, you're making changes. There will be key decisions, i.e. choosing a supplier, choosing a piece of tech that you need to make sure you have buy-in. But as long as you are communicating and setting expectations early on and then baselining those expectations, you have the autonomy to move within it. You would only need to go beyond that and up a chain of command almost when you deviate or when significant decisions are made. But if what you have is so within a regular governance cycle, you will have meetings, working group meetings, for example, and steering group meetings. And in those meetings, you would present a set of decisions, and those decisions will be validated. Some of them will be high decisions, like we're choosing this particular tech, so it would mean the discussion, an actual firm decision, or you would have already made the decision and you're informing your stakeholders because it's a lower level. So the governance structure itself allows you to inform on decisions as well as consult on decisions in a way that is timely if you've got this regular rhythm, drumbeat of working group meetings, steering group meetings, etc.
Yeah. And I think I'd just add to that is really work on your relationship with your sponsor as well. You really build that trust with them so that you can have so that trust kind of ends up working both ways, and there is an understanding that you as project manager or program manager will have the autonomy to make some decisions with your team. But that relationship with your sponsor is critical for you to be able to do that. So you know each other, you know how far you could go in terms of decision making. So that might be a way to kind of empower you and your team to make smaller decisions on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. No, thank you.
And another question, Jeremy, you've got here is around KPIs. So any KPIs or metrics that could be used to ensure governance is adding value rather than being an overhead. The standard ones I would say are in that triangle. So your cost, your timeline, your scope, your benefits, because anything that impacts those is going to ultimately impact the project quite significantly. So if your cost, timeline, scope, or benefits slip beyond contingency, then you would be looking to flag red and amber or report them green if everything is on track. I also think two others that are helpful, which is as you start to get towards go live. So now, for example, when you're getting ready to launch your product, readiness is a really good one to be tracking as well. Is the organisation ready to receive this change? So those that are going to be managing this change and servicing it, are they ready? Those that are receiving it, are they ready? If it's a tech solution, is the tech itself ready? So as you get towards go live, that readiness KPI or metric is really helpful. And another one, just to make sure people are at the heart of it, is engagement or change management, whatever term you'd like to use, the people metric. Are you, as a project manager, and it's hard to quantify this, it's a bit of a qualitative metric often until you get to the point of readiness, but are you effectively engaging your people? I think that's a really, really helpful metric to have in there as well. But most important, time, cost, scope, benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you can tell, governance is always a popular subject whenever I'm managing a project or program, and I find sometimes teams can sometimes use it to try and hide behind it, because so it's just making sure that you've got the right level, that it adds value and keeps you in control, but you're not giving your project team too many hiding places, if that makes sense.
Do you mean where projects are reported healthier than they maybe are?
I mean in the sense that you aren't moving forward as quickly as you would like, because people are using the governance to say, well, I haven't done this because I need to perform this process or task in order to meet governance, and almost using the governance as an excuse for a lack of progress. So it's just finding that balance between making sure you're in control, but as we all know, as change professionals, everyone wants everything tomorrow, or as fast as possible. So it's how can you make sure you've got the right level of control, but don't give people more work to do that's not necessary.
100%. I completely agree with you there. So, for example, you can end up slowing a project down because you might have governance forums that might need to go to a technical design authority before they can go to their steering group meeting, and before they can go live and actually the next TDA meeting is another 6 weeks away, and they're meant to go live in 4 weeks. So the governance should work for the project, not the other way around. And how can we flex that governance in order to support projects so that the governance is working for them, not that they're having to work for the governance. But equally, if that governance is set and expectations are really clear, it's built into the timeline as well. But yeah, I do get what you mean, and it can absolutely, if it's not done right, it can slow down, and it can be the reason a project ends up delayed, which is really ironic because it's there to help, and actually it can result in delays, which is really not what should be happening at all, but it does. So that's, something can be wrong with the governance when that's happening. And I'm assuming that probably leads you on to the next question around a framework to help you decide what the appropriate level of governance is for projects. I would say when creating a project framework and the governance that underpins and assures that framework, create one that is going to be suitable for the most complex project or program that you will deliver. And then you are ready for any level of complexity. But then it's just about being pragmatic. So when a new project comes on board, say you have gateway checks throughout one life cycle to another, it's pragmatically testing and questioning whether each of these processes and steps within the governance process will add value to that particular project. And if it's not a yes, then let's take it out, or let's merge some of the life cycle phases, or let's give them the autonomy to move beyond it. And that should be revisited at each phase of the project, because projects can grow arms and legs and governance may need to change as the project develops. But it's just about being pragmatic. Have something that will work for the most complex of changes, and then be really pragmatic about how you apply that. If it doesn't add value, don't do it.
Yeah, well, and one way that we've done that in the past, haven't we, Ruth, when we worked together, we've used a governance adoption matrix. So we've had the gold-plated complex governance that you'd expect to see through life cycles and the artifacts that might be required at different stages. Yeah. But then if you have a smaller project that doesn't need all that, you get together with that project manager at the start of the project to look at what governance will be required for this, and just, like, this is what we'll expect to do, and adopt a specific governance for that from that gold-plated, complex change. And that can be something that you can just have for all your projects in your organisation. You just, at the start, you'll kind of like, okay, let's sit down, let's really think about what governance is needed for this project. And you can do it that way.
Okay, great, thank you.
And then there was one question around early warning signs that a project might be headed off track. I think there's lots. I would say there's lots.
Yeah, it's so the reason I asked this one is you see them all the time, but I always like to ask this question because projects can fail or slip from green to amber to red for a multitude of different reasons. But I always like to ask the question because I think the sign of a really good project manager or change manager is to be able to spot those early warning signs, and that just comes with experience. So I always ask people to share their experiences, because if there's another thing that I can be looking for, then it just makes me better.
You're absolutely right. So my first, this might sound like a bit of a strange one, but my first red flag in this area, so I'm working in a portfolio, the first red flag is the project manager not engaging with me. Because I'm like, the projects will go off track. It's what happens. There will be an issue at some point, or a risk that we need to and if I have not got good engagement with the project manager, I'm not going to know about it. I'm not going to know what questions to ask. So if I'm getting given the elbow, the cold shoulder, I'm like, right, we're going to be best mates in a month. And so that's my first warning sign. I need to be working partner to partner with project managers and project teams. And if we're not, that for me is the biggest red flag that I'm not going to be successful in doing my job, because I'm not going to know what questions to ask. They're not going to be trusting me with problems and challenges. And as Jen said earlier in the call, the sign that you're doing your job well is when project teams come to you and say, I think we're going to slip here. What do we do to get back on track? How do we report this and get ourselves, like, how can you help me? And they're not going to do that if you've not got good reports. But yeah, that's the first one. And the next one, I think, is where you are hearing, you're joining meetings and you're hearing concerns and you're hearing worries, and you're hearing like little niggles of things not going quite right, but nothing is showing on status reports, and it's all being talked about, but there's nothing being documented.
Yeah.
That for me is a biggie, because we've got a gut feel that something's not wrong, that something could go wrong, and we're not talking about it. Now, that could be a cultural thing. We don't feel safe enough to talk about it. And so I will always look first at our processes to say, why are people not feeling comfortable? But I think, again, that's a big one for me, because if we're talking about it, let's document it, because then we can be sharing it wider and maybe getting other perspectives on it. It doesn't mean we need to go red and amber, but there's just a niggle. We could raise it as a concern with staying green. So yeah, that's another one for me. And then there's the usual, like, moving within contingency or slipping within contingency, and they use up the contingency. That's another one. There's now no contingency left. Okay, the next time this slips, we're going to need to go through change control.
Yeah.
And also hidden numbers. When you look at budgets and you're like, that shouldn't be so high. We've got hidden contingency all in here, and just understanding that a little bit further as well, because then you're slipping without realising you're slipping, which of course is no good. But yeah, those first two are the big ones, I would say.
Yeah, the status report one's a really good one to call out.
Nudge.
Just off the back of that, because I'm managing this AI thing, and do you separate yourself out as like a project manager as opposed to someone that's the people management as opposed to the actual project manager? Because I've got so my wife was going to be coming into the business and sort of managing it, yeah. And do you separate? She's not technical in financial services. I am, but I'm okay with people, but I'm really more just sort of like out the front doing everything, as trying to expand it. We've just invested a lot, but do you separate yourself out as in like you don't manage the people, someone else manages the people, you just tell them what to manage, or do you get involved in that as well?
So when you're a project manager, you are both. You're managing the project and you're managing the team as well. And so I would say it's both if you're a project manager. But sit down and consider your roles within this, because it might be that somebody else is project manager, i.e. managing the output and managing the team, but another person is project director, for example, so more kind of overseeing the strategy of it and creating the direction for it rather than the actual day-to-day overseeing and delivering. But yes, as project manager, you are focusing on what's being delivered as well as being there for the team. So you are leading a temporary team, so that means you're there to support them, help them, enable and equip them, etc. You've got like a dotted line of management, really. Does that answer the question?
Okay. Yeah.
And then Aidan, we had a question from yourself. Apologies, I've not had a chance to read it, so feel free to. Do you want to jump in? Have we still got Aidan on? No, we haven't.
I think he might have just jumped. Yeah,
he has just. Oh, right. Let me have a look at what he said here. So he's an interim transformation lead, and as part of setting up a project, he has learned to identify stakeholders who are not likely to be supportive. Politics are unavoidable, but so important to understand that he's absolutely, bob on. This is where the sponsor plays a big part. It is so important, and I think I would assume that Aidan's identified that because of early engagement. So you engage with individuals as early on as possible, and if you get the sense that they're not on board, not supportive, not wanting to maybe be involved in the change, I would try and understand why, I think would be my first. And it's hard in a virtual world. I think when we were all face to face, you'd just grab lunch with somebody, wouldn't you, or go for a cup of coffee. And if there's the option to do that, nothing beats face to face. So I would do that and just understand what are their concerns and challenges. If they're permanent in the organisation, it might be that they've seen this attempted numerous times and they're just sick of it. And it's not that they don't want the outcome, it's just that they've never achieved the value from it. It might be that they're already stretched too thin and they don't have capacity for it. Or it might be that they just genuinely don't believe this is the right thing and it's going to be the benefit. So having a conversation with them to understand concerns will make the project stronger ultimately in the long run, because if they don't think it's the right thing, maybe there needs to be some questions asked about whether it is. And if it's been attempted before, there might be some learnings. So yeah, if you engage early on, similar to what we were saying, Jeremy, you can see those that are actually maybe not on board with what you're doing, and you can face into that and try and understand why. Because you're managing that team, so you need people on board.
Ruth, I'm afraid I have to drop off now. So there's just a few more questions from Shanu, isn't there, on the chat?
Oh, in the Q&A, apologies, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. So, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to jump off now, so I'll just leave you to it to answer the rest of the questions. Is that okay?
Thanks so much, Jen. Yes, of course, we'll keep working through these questions.
Thank you. I've got an hour to get to somewhere, I'm afraid. There's you'll have to reshare the screen because I'm currently sharing. If you need to.
No problem. Don't worry. I don't think we'll need to share, so not a problem at all. We can just work through the questions. Thanks, Jen.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Lovely to have you here today. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Where are our questions? Let's have a look.
Q&A.
So Shanu, have we got Shanu on? Oh, fabulous. Shanu, you're still here with us, aren't you? So let's work through your questions. How to differentiate between projects and programs? Very good question. So a project, to be really simple with it, a project is a smaller piece of work than a program, usually. Well, yeah, it is. It's a smaller piece of work than a program. And it's outcome for, there is one particular thing to focus on. So let me bring this to life to explain it a little bit better. If you are building a house and you've bought a plot of land and you're building a house on that plot of land, one single house, that would be a project of work. However, if you're building an entire estate, so you might be building 100 houses on acres and acres of land. That would be a program of work, because you've gone from building one project, one property, which is you engaging your surveyors, you'd be engaging your architects, you're engaging your builders, your plumbers. You would still need to have various work streams. And if it's a property to sell, you would have to engage your estate agents, etc. And there'll be some legal element, but it can be contained. If you're building an entire estate, you're transforming a town or transforming a village, and therefore there's huge impacts to people in the area. There would be a massive impact in terms of legal, as well as it would be a lot harder to get through planning control, that sort of thing. So if it's an isolated initiative, it's a project. If there are numerous initiatives included in it, but they all are connected, then it's a program of work. So another example to bring it into a corporate environment would be if you are bringing in a new HR system. It's a brand new HR system for colleagues to use to track absences, to look at their objectives, and to help with one-to-ones and training. Then that is a project of work. There's lots involved in that, but it's one single project. If, however, you are revamping the entire IT transformation within an organisation, so you need a new finance system, a new payroll system, a new HR system and training system, you need a new CRM system and a new project system, PPM tool, for example. So any tech within an organisation, you are revamping the whole thing. That would be a programme of work, because there are numerous elements involved that are all for the value of IT transformation. But you've got IT, HR, you've got finance, you've got learning and development, you've got you've got projects. So you've got all these different elements involved within it. So that would be classed as a programme of work. Programmes have to be managed quite differently to projects. They need a different life cycle, they need a different framework, they need a different governance structure. I think one of the biggest mistakes are made is when you try and manage a programme like a project. Does that answer your question, Shanu? I'll take that as yes, but give me a shout if not. Can you share any in-house tools you are created for successful project execution? Have a look at something called PPM tools. So PPM tools are things like Monday, Workday, Adaptive, Perform. What am I missing? There's hundreds. There's so many. My mind's gone blank, but there's so many. Just Google PPM tools, and there are numerous tools that will automate and bring efficiency to project management. Most of them sit in the cloud, and rather than using Microsoft Package, for example, or Google Docs, you would manage everything within that particular piece of software, and it would produce dashboards and reports for you. Really, really useful. They add a lot of value. I would say a PMO team should not jump to that until they've got a level of maturity already within their organisation, because ultimately the benefit of a PPM tool is only going to be realised if the data that's going into it is useful, fit for purpose, updated. So if you've got project teams who are already bought into the value of governance and project frameworks, then they will utilise the PPM tool really well. If they're not bought into that, there's a lot of work you need to do with your team before you can bring that in. A lot of projects that bring PPM tools in are not successful in my experience, because the level of maturity isn't there and it's not treated like a project, and the change management element is missing. But have a look at PPM. The other thing is you can quite simply use the Microsoft the Microsoft package, Excel, PowerPoint, Word. It's not as efficient, and it's not as effective as a PPM tool. It will be more manual and take more time, but it will bring the value still, and it helps get people on board before you eventually move to a PPM tool. We are partners with the Perform tool, with the company Keyview. We're advocates for the Perform tool because it's brilliant at looking at that strategic portfolio perspective without too much demand on project teams having to put huge amounts of information into the system. So we do like the Perform tool. Do you have any best practices in creating project plans that you can share here? That feels like a webinar in its own right, but I will absolutely touch on that. So do not create a project plan without first speaking to as many people as you possibly can. If you can get everybody in one room, that is the perfect approach. Brown paper rolled out on a big long table or stuck up on a wall, a pile of post-it notes and a load of Sharpies and a packet of biscuits to keep people going, and ask what needs to happen, when, why, what are we concerned about, what are we dependent upon, and just get every bit of information that you can out of people's heads onto post-it notes and start to create a timeline up on that brown paper, that roll that's on your wall. Then you type that up, then you get back in a room and you look at it again and you validate it, and you do that over and over until you've got a strong project plan that has been created collaboratively. Microsoft Project is a relatively cheap tool that you can use. All your PPM tools will give capability to manage plans, and of course you can use good old trusty Excel as well. Smartsheets is another one, really customizable as well. And then you've got a question here, Shanu, how to engage with your organisation for any PMO support in the future. I think that means our organisation. So you just drop us a message. We are always happy to support for any PMO that we can give. So drop myself a message, Jen a message, Asha or Dev, and if we can support you in any way, we would be thrilled to do so. So yes, drop us a message and we'll have a chat with you, and no, completely confidential, and of course no obligation off the back of that either. And if that conversation helps you, then fantastic. I'm sure it will, because we'd love to understand the world of PMO and to see how we can support. So yes, Shanu, always do reach out and we'd be happy to help. And then Naj, do you do group training workshops that I can attend as an individual? All of our training at the moment, you're very welcome, Shanu. You know where we are. If you've got any questions, just reach out. And all our training, Naj, at the moment is corporate, so it's business to business training that we deliver, but it might be in the future that we do move more towards the business to person, but at the moment it is all corporate. But equally, that's not to say we can't do one-to-one training through your organisation for you, so please do reach out, Naj, either for yourself or your project team if you think it would be beneficial, especially if you are a new project team and would just like some help getting established and set up. I think I'm right in saying that's all our questions answered.
Yep. Right.
Yeah, fabulous.
Oh,
Brilliant.
thanks for attending.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thank you, everybody. And for those that catch up on the recording, I do hope this has been helpful for you. You know where we are if we've got any questions at all. Thanks so much, all.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.